If you spend $100 in your local community, almost $70 stays in your local community. If you don't, around $40 stays in that.
Welcome back to the CultureWorks podcast. I'm Adrian Gostick here with the lovely and talented Chester Elton. And today we're talking with someone who has one of the most unique roles I think we've seen in HR or the corporate world, right, Chess? He's responsible for both people and marketing.
Yeah, not your usual combination. This is going to be a good conversation. Nate Brock is the Chief Human Resource Officer at Link One Federal Credit Union in Lincoln, Nebraska. Go Huskers. There you go. Where he leads the human resources and marketing functions for a member-owned financial cooperative serving more than 17,000 members. He has been nationally recognized by America's credit unions for his innovative work. Welcome to the show, Nate. Delighted to have you.
Hey, Chester, Adrian. Good to meet you guys virtually and super excited to dive in and geek out together on culture and marketing and credit unions. Fellow culture geeks unite. So let's go.
Well, that's awesome. Yeah, no, we're big fans of your work and what you do. And so let's kick this off with something I think people would have sparked too, something that's very fascinating, I think, for us, is your CHRO and also head of marketing. Tell us how that came about and how the strategic logic maybe behind it.
Yeah, I think consistent internal branding is really important and consistent external branding is really important. And even though marketing is a relatively newer game for me, I've been in the human resources field for 15 plus years now. And a lot of times you heard from the marketing people that some of the most effective marketing is word of mouth, right? That goes back to the beginning of business almost. And that hasn't changed. I think some of the studies show about 90% of consumers trust their friends and family over ads. And that still holds true today, 90%. So I think when we stepped back and looked at what we were developing here, culture was a huge priority. Our employer brand was developing, and man, we are an employer of choice now in the Lincoln community. We get too many applications to join our work family in a county that has record low unemployment, so shout out Lancaster County. So everyone that wants to work is working here. And the fact that we were able to develop an employer of choice brand and really feature our people and focus in on our culture, we looked at our marketing and thought, how do we get our external branding with our products and services consistent with the culture and the positive movement on the internal branding, and to make sure those silos were broken down. And that's really what came to the initial conversations with some reorganization was, how do we align and really focus in on our people? So we go back to word of mouth marketing, and who does that? Who's responsible for the members' experience and consumers' experience, depending on what industry you're in? And that's people, right? And who's traditionally the head of people? Usually human resources. Who's the head of, why is marketing and human resources not closer together? So obviously not one size fits all for all organizations. For us, this works fantastic to have it housed in one area. At a minimum, having marketing and HR super close together is highly recommended. And we've seen vast success in sticking out in our community and our brand, and we're really proud of that.
Adrian, it reminds me of the phrase that we use often, that in your case, member, because you're a member association, the member experience will never exceed the employee experience. So you create that employer of choice, you've got really happy people, that's going to ripple through to your members. Makes sense, doesn't it?
Exactly. And you could have the best marketing in the world, but if your people aren't great and your service stinks, you just wasted your whole marketing budget. So if you got to get your culture right first, you got to get your people right, get the right people in the right roles at the right time, and then find your market distinction. And the challenge for us in our industry, it's evolving. It's changing with fintechs coming in. As in your communities that you're in, there's a bank on every corner, right? There's a credit union, bank everywhere. Now you look at your phone, there's fintechs all over too. So now we're not only competing with our local market, we're competing in the national market. And some of these fintechs have bigger marketing budgets than our entire asset size. So we're punching up weight a little bit, right? So we also step back and recognize how do we become the purple cow in the field in this industry? And we said, our people. You can't have our people because we're the only one with them. So all of our ads, all of our commercials feature our people And in financial services, you have to build trust. And it starts with our people. And that brand is really resonating now in the community. And it shows in our success. We've done this for a couple years now. And we had record income in a challenging year last year, record mortgage production, record website traffic, record low attrition. So we have facts now that are gathering to say, no, this actually does make a lot of sense. And maybe more businesses should consider how close is your marketing and human resources, and is there consistency or is there silos? Is there a divide?
Yeah. Let me ask you, so you're in a leadership meeting. Do you wear your HR hat or your marketing hat, or is it just one hat at this point?
Yeah, it has to be one, but the HR hat, the experience and comfort level is much higher. So I always start with the people first. The marketing side is growing, but it starts with our people, and then it really just follows into how do we continue to grow and be successful with more product and service offerings, and how are we approaching our members to provide value, and because we're never going to sell things just to sell things. That's one of the big differences in credit unions, and we'll talk about that later probably, but making sure that we're finding those solutions and matching our members' needs, and that's our member experience, our employee experience, and our product and service experience all getting wrapped up together in one.
So let's talk about this idea of culture. But just what you say is really resonating. In our little town here of 5,000 people, there's a credit union, and then next to it is a regional bank. Next to it is a national bank, and just a little further down the road is a state-only, or actually southern state-only bank. So we've got the whole range in 2 or 3 city blocks, one little stretch. And so you're right. It's really the relationships you create. Do you trust your branch manager? Do you trust the people who are helping you and do they have the right products and services? But as a consumer, they look pretty close to each other. It's culture that makes the difference. And I think you know that. So talk a little bit about that. How do you inform that employee experience, which will create the member experience? Talk about how you've created a culture and what's worked and what hasn't.
Yeah, I think it starts with hiring, and anytime you're doing a culture shift, and going back to what you guys know, all in, you have to be all in. And if there are folks that aren't, then you have to find ways to either coach them up or coach them out. And that's not cold, that's just necessary for business. And I think in credit unions, we're very holistic and kind and patient, and that's maybe our greatest asset, but also maybe our greatest weakness. And I think making sure that we're coaching up effectively. We have a common saying in the credit union industry that what's good for a member isn't necessarily good for our membership, and what's good for an employee isn't necessarily good for our 44 employees either in our missions. We really focused in on communication and breaking down those barriers and making sure our frontline staff are being heard. And I think that goes back to breaking down those silos, and the agility that we have at a smaller organization makes it a lot easier when you know all your people and you talk and interact each day. You're like, what are you hearing? Like the front line, they know so much from a marketing research standpoint on what technology is working, what member pain points are there, what product services things are not hitting or resonating. And your frontline staff, or even your newest staff member, they just know different ways of doing things, and they see it at a whole nother level. So instead of just doing surveys and doing surface level reviews, like actually acting upon some of those results in a timely fashion and just trying different things out. It took a brave leader, shout out Mary Saylors, my president CEO, to put the HR guy in charge of marketing. That's a risk, right?
It is.
And in business, you have to take risks. You just have to take some risks and try. And I think we'd rather try 10 different things and see what's working versus stepping back and overanalyzing things too much.
I'd like to get a little more specific and practical. So you get the feedback, your people. What are some of the programs? How do you collect that? You say, hey, I walk around and talk to people and so on. Are there some more formal programs where, you're having regular town halls or you're doing surveys and so on, and yet it seems to be working at a much higher level for you. What are some of the real practical, specific things you
Sure. Yeah. You said town hall. Actually, Monday, President's Day, we got an all hands meeting all day to get that feedback and review the successes and hear from everybody. We do surveys like everyone else, probably. SurveyMonkey, there's some confidential surveys you can use through that. And then there's an in-person approach too. And we're fortunate enough to only have 44 people across 3 locations, so I can actually meet with everybody one-on-one. But I can't do that all the time. Making sure our managers have those one-on-one communications and they're not just done to be done. They're actually invested time and energy and resources on doing them effectively. There's a whole bunch of information out there, as you guys see more than I maybe, on one-on-ones and communication. But if you're not doing it right and spending your time and energy and resources on your people, then what are you really spending your time and energy on? So if your culture is not great, then that starts by looking in the mirror and seeing where are the pain points? Why are we losing people? Are you doing exit interviews? And how are you adjusting when people do leave? And why are we keeping people, and making sure what we're doing right continues too?
And I think there's something subtle there. We actually don't want to really know the answers, but yeah.
Right.
Yeah, and I love that you're asking those and you're pushing here. Okay, so let's move to this idea of member owned, because I've worked in banking. Chester and I do a lot with credit unions. We've seen both sides of the world. What can the rest of the world learn from a credit union with this idea of being member owned? Is there something that, that we can take away if we're not?
If you're considering where to partner for your financial services, there's two big options. There's a for-profit model where you're a number, and their number one goal is to make money off of you, no disrespect. However, in a credit union model, when you're member-owned and not for-profit, you're for service, and you're truly there for the betterment of your community. That's just facts. Like you can't change that. So when it's people over profit, that's just the easiest way to explain the difference. But if you also look at economic impacts, and the studies are out there, you'll have to Google this. I don't have them in front of me, but you can fact check me. If you spend $100 in your local community, almost $70 stays in your local community. If you don't, around $40 stays in that. So if you're looking at making an impact in your communities, it's more important than ever to borrow, spend, and save in your local economy. And that does start at your local credit unions. And what does that mean? That means when you deposit money into your local credit union, we can get people into their homes. We can get people into their cars. You're literally borrowing money to your neighbors. And it's also a democratically controlled financial cooperative. So we have 9 board of directors, and they're fantastic, but they're unpaid. They're volunteers. And they're elected into run the credit union by the members. So it's just an unknown commodity, and almost anywhere in the world even. But in the United States, you go to America's credit unions or just Google nearest credit union to me, there's a credit union for everybody. People just don't understand that, I have to have all these things. But yes, you may need to work at a certain place in some credit unions, or you just simply need to live. Like for us, we started in the back of a Goodyear plant, 1955.
Oh, really?
Yeah, you had to work at the rubber factory, and a couple guys got together, Adrian and Chester, and Nate needed some money. You guys had a couple $100. I had none. You
still haven't paid us back, by the way.
I know. I'm working on that.
Where's our money, Nate? Yeah.
Yeah. What a cool way to start at the root like that.
Awesome.
And now we're a community charter, so you do have to live, work, worship, or study in Lancaster County. But depending on where you're at, there's a credit union for you. And it just makes such an impact on your local economy to make sure you're doing the borrowing, the spending, and the saving all in your local community.
I'm such a fan of what you just said. It's interesting. I have this conversation with my wife all the time. She'll say, we've got a couple of little hardware stores in our town, right? And then, of course, there's the big box stuff. She says, let's just go to the big box. I go, no, let's go to our local guy first, because if we don't go to him and he goes away, that's not a good thing. Yeah. I didn't realize. Give me the percentage again. You said 90% of the money stays in the community?
I think it's closer to, for every $100 you spend in your local business, at least 70 of that stays local. 70%? But it drops to almost 40 when you go elsewhere. Yeah. And I came from a small town, shout out Clarksville, Minnesota. It's about 50% the population now. And obviously when you lose businesses, you lose people, you can't support local businesses. And this is around the whole country. If you drive through a local community, they used to have bakeries and hardware stores, and they had all these mom and pop shops because people spent in the local economy. And what happened was large box stores and online shopping took all the money out of your local economy. And if you didn't evolve really quickly and adapt, then unfortunately it just got gobbled up. And it's devastating to see that. But it is coming back. I think that buy local, spend local energy there's momentum there. People are seeing that.
I think especially in food, that farm to table has become
Yep.
quite a thing. Although and look, I didn't grow up in Minnesota, but I don't think you said that. Isn't it Minnesota?
Yeah, the old days do get longer.
Oh, yeah.
Shout out to my
Minnesota.
Minnesotas. We got UFTAs and don't you knows up there. I know that. So.
I love that.
Don't you know?
Some of the things that you do maybe with your talent strategies. Tell us a little bit about you're trying to attract some of the best talent. I know you've been nationally recognized for your HR work. So give us some innovations or approaches you've implemented at Link One that maybe other credit unions and any institution can learn from when you're competing against larger institutions for talent.
That is a great question. So, best way a business can fix recruiting is not to have to recruit in the first place. Again, culture, why are you losing people? And if you can address that and recruit less because you're keeping people longer and high performers longer, then you're going to be ahead of 90% of the businesses out there. When it comes to recruiting, not much has changed. People want to get paid well. They want benefits and they want time away from work to recharge. And I know it's an older mentality, but I do believe in it still, is lean and mean. If you can pay people really well, provide a great benefits package, give them substantial paid time away to recharge, those needs have not changed. And yeah, maybe you can run with 2 less people because you're paying a little bit richer and you have higher capable talent. You're going to get what you pay for, but it does take investment and success in order to do those things.
Do you find you get a lot of family members recruiting other family members?
You bet.
In your area, it is a pretty tight-knit community. And so if you're the employer of choice, I'm curious, do you find that's your best recruiting tool? Is, hey, you got a brother at home kind of thing?
Yeah, word of mouth marketing. It comes to members referring members, employees referring employees, and some of our best employees have been referred over. And they still go through the interview cycle, but yeah, referrals are gold still in today's day and age. And when somebody that believes in a mission and a purpose, and they've told you that, not a recruiter, you're not hearing it from me. The recruiter tells you what you want to hear, and then you get into a place. And if you're not,
it may or may not be what he told you. Yeah,
exactly. Actions speak much louder than words. But yeah, I think it's just fixing your attrition. Why are people leaving? And taking action. And then, yeah, you're going to have to pay really well, provide good benefits and leave still. And that hasn't changed. And then really empower your people to spread the good word to get action in the recruiting game.
You wrote an article called Next Generation Performance Reviews. So what makes a performance review a next generation? I immediately went to Star Trek.
That's what I was thinking too. You have to wear like a uniform and have a little patch.
Yeah. That's funny.
Better communicators, better laser beams, what?
I'm more of a Star Wars fan, but yeah, anyway. Yeah. So not doing them, honestly, that's what makes it next generation, is not ranking somebody a 2.3 with no context and no meetings throughout the year and just throwing them off by, oh, we're going to meet once a year and you're now a 2.2. And in the credit union industry, we believe that it's members, not numbers. So I think that philosophy and value system is really hard for us to rank our employees' numbers. And that has been a big shift. And there's been a big shift in our industry, I think, to focusing in on separating coaching and communication from compensation. So if you're already paying people at a very high level and staying above market and having HR focus in on the market rate and having pay transparency saying, hey, this is the data we use, y'all. This is where you're at, where you can go. Because if you don't share that information, what's the number one assumption?
You're hiding something.
Yeah, I'm not paid fairly. So if you are paying fairly, communicate that, market that, and separate that from coaching. And you can develop a very effective communication and coaching strategy that gets people from high performers. We still measure skill and will internally and like where are people at in the matrix of skill and will. And yeah, we'll hire for skill and or will and train up for skill. But where are these people at? We'll still measure things, but we're not doing the formal numerical ranking process. It's just something that hasn't changed for a long time. And honestly, if you haven't changed your annual review process in the last 5 to 10 years, then you got to really blow it up and start over and question, how do we want to do this moving forward to meet the needs of the future versus what we've always done?
I love that idea. Yeah, if we keep doing the same things we've done 10 years ago, the world has changed, let alone the pressures and the way to attract people, et cetera, and retain them. Love that.
Yep.
Okay, so we're going to move into a section we call the culture challenge. And I think as I look through the things we could have talked to you about, I think we've touched on everything except this. Now, as I said, Chester and I work with a lot of credit unions. It's interesting as we coach people in the credit union world, they'll say, I want my people to be able to sell more, and I want them to be able to do more mortgages and to get more loans, like any company. They want to be able to grow because the more that they grow, the more they can serve members. The problem is a lot of people attracted to credit unions aren't really driven in that way. They come because they want to serve and they want to give back to their communities. They want to spend 20 minutes talking to Susan who walks in and at the branch. And they're just a different mentality sometimes. To make them into somebody they're not is a little harder. So let's talk a little bit about attracting especially diverse younger talent, that instinct to want to nurture and want to do great things at the credit union, but also you want them to stretch and grow and to do a little bit more. That's a big question, but let's talk a little bit about that, Nate.
Yeah, I think it starts with leadership. Go back to culture, obviously, but also it's about showing up in those groups. Does your workforce reflect the community that you serve?
Yep.
We serve all of Lancaster County, Nebraska. So does our workforce reflect all of Lancaster County, Nebraska? And I think that's really important. Going out to the high schools and the elementary schools and going out to the colleges and making sure that you're going into the community that you serve and not just hiding in your walls, I think is probably one of the most underutilized elements of attracting the next generation of folks to credit unions. And we're trying a new campaign this year called our Local Lift campaign. So each month we're lifting a local business or nonprofit up, and we're doing co-branding. They have an email list. We have an email list. They have a social media following. We have a social media following. There's no cost for it. It's just how do we help each other thrive in our local economy? And by doing that and building those business-to-business relations and relationships with the elementary schools and the high schools and the nonprofit clubs and different things like that, yeah, you have to be in your community to serve your community. And if you find yourself staying in your office, you're probably not going to reach those groups effectively.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about your favorite charities and stuff. I love this idea of once a month we pick somebody else, and so
great.
you're in a lot of places and you're ever present. The idea too of let's co-brand it and let's share our email databases and lift each other up. Look, I live just outside New York City, and it's like the financial capital of the world. And all the stuff that you talk about it's kill or be killed. That's like you say, we're in business to make money off of you, and it's really prevalent. So this is so refreshing. Anyway, we're going to go to the big finish. Are you ready, Nate? This is what we call the lightning round. Yeah. So I'm going to say a few things, and you say the first thing that kind of pops into your head. Okay. Here we go. What's one thing mission-driven organizations do better than profit-driven ones?
Yeah, I think I may have mentioned it previously, but when your values are truly people over profit, you can't hide that. It's just a distinction of difference. If your number one priority, your mission, your vision, your purpose, the whole reason you exist is for your people and your community, not profit, you just can't win that argument. You can't. Every other financial institution that is for profit can't win that argument. They want money and you're a number. And now there's a lot of great community banks, not razzing on those guys, a lot of great community banks, but we would much rather keep the money on Main Street with local community banks and credit unions than go to Wall Street. And that money just shrinks our local economies.
It's so funny, Adrian. I'm thinking we should air this episode near Christmas because this sounds like The Wonderful Life to me. All the guys come in and how much money have you got? How much money have you got? So what's the one thing that mission-driven organizations can learn from the profit-driven companies?
Yeah, I think you guys hit the nail on the head here. It is more sales. When you're super holistic and relationship driven, the sales culture probably is not as prioritized as it needs to be. And for us, it's about ethical sales. So we still need to be able to provide those solutions and ask strategic questions. And it's okay to provide those questions and solutions to our members. And I think that's one thing you can learn from those for-profit drivers is that their sales training and their sales drive, because profit is number one. Yeah, they're better at that because that's their number one driver. And
it's amazing, too, when we work with credit unions, how infrequently the leaders say why we need to grow sales here at the credit union. They say, we got to grow sales. Why? If we do, we can serve more members.
Do
We can
more.
give more loans out. And that connection is rare. So I'm glad you're making that.
Yep. And one of our bumper stickers for the year is growth and comfort do not coexist. So you got to get uncomfortable and push yourself. You have to push yourself.
Yeah. So I think I know the answer to this one from our conversation, but if you could only focus on one thing, people or brand, which would you choose and why?
Yeah, you heard it. The people. People
It's
are our
people, no
brand.
question,
Yeah, people do everything. They will bring you as far as you want to go. And that word of mouth marketing is gold. It's just gold. And if you have a great culture and great mission and purpose and your people are empowered and they believe in it, your marketing is going to be focused on those product and services growth. You're not marketing people to hire. You're marketing actual solutions to target needs. And if you find yourself marketing for people to hire, then you maybe got to address your culture first and fix the hiring issue and let marketing do its thing.
Okay, last question, big finish. Finish this sentence. The future of community banking is?
Ooh. Unfortunately, smaller, but hopefully more impactful.
Nice.
Awesome.
Great answer.
Great answers all over. Thanks, Nate, for being with us today. This has been really insightful. And how would people learn more about yourself, the credit union movement? Where will you send them?
Yeah, America's Credit Unions has a bunch of great resources if you're interested about the credit union movement nationwide. If you're interested in joining a local credit union, all you got to do is Google and check where your local credit union's at. For us, Lancaster County, Nebraska, link1fcu.org. And if you ever need a sounding board on the marketing, credit union space, or people, I'm available on LinkedIn for connection anytime. Love to share ideas and resources. Just like this. Chester, Adrian, appreciate you guys so much. This has been very valuable. I would like to throw back a question to you guys, since you guys have the all-in, the culture knowledge. If you had one tip for anyone out there as it pertains to fixing a culture, what would you say your one tip is?
Yeah, this is interesting. I always go first because Chester has the last word, because then he'll say what Adrian meant to say. But what I would say is, and this is what Chester and I do. We go in, we work to fix cultures. One of the biggest problems is people don't know future vision right now. And especially everything you've talked about, there's so much uncertainty in the world. There's so much in your world of financial services, other competitors coming in, online banking, this, that, and the other. What's our future here? Help me understand what our future is, not once a year, but every week. Talk about that. How do I fit individually? And am I making a difference? And do I individually have a future here? Are we still going to have branches in 5 years? Are we still going to have a call center? Just bring down my anxiety levels about the future, and I'm going to be more focused on serving members today.
Oh, I love that. Transparency, the why,
Yeah.
informative. That goes back to communication, keeping everyone informed on what's going on. And yeah, if there's uncertainties, we got to clarify that. I love that. That's fantastic.
Yeah, I'm just going to say amen to what Adrian said. Get to the why. Keep the why front and center. This is why we do what we do.
Yep.
And that's that emotional engagement. And then what you're doing is that constant check-in, that next level stuff. Like, how are you doing? Where are you going? Nate, this has been a delight. Thank you so much for being on our podcast. And thanks everybody that tuned in. If you like this, share it with your friends and family. We are delighted to bring you some really interesting and good thinking people. Hopefully there was 2 or 3 things you picked up from the podcast that you can take to your businesses. So hope to see you again soon, Nate. It's been a delight. Adrian, one of the things that I love about our podcast is we get leaders, really smart leaders and insightful leaders from all different parts of the workplace, big companies, mid-sized companies. Here's a credit union. They got like 44 employees.
Yeah.
And yet they're thinking and what he's doing and putting marketing and people together. That was really clever. What were some of the things that jumped out in your...
It's funny, because you were just out working with clients. I was out working with a client that has 40,000 employees.
Right.
And here we are talking to somebody who has 40 employees. That's awesome, because it doesn't matter where we go. The people issues are going to be the same. We're trying to attract and retain great talent. And we're trying to get people to care about the organization, have them understand the why. So what I loved here, this is what I wrote down too. The best recruiting is when you never have to recruit.
Right.
And
I
that's
loved when he
exactly
said that.
When you just have more people looking to work with you. And how do you do that? You can't do it through ads or cool spending, great LinkedIn ads. All those are nice. You do it through your culture.
Yeah. It's so funny. You're in southern Utah. It's beautiful. I'm in northern New Jersey. It's freezing. I'm looking at my notes and I'm so cold that I'm looking, I go, what does that even say? It's just so frustrating.
I know.
It's interesting, though. I loved when he said it's members, not numbers. That's the
Yeah.
biggest differentiator. We're not here to
Yeah.
make a profit off of you. We're here to help you. And his story about starting the credit union in the Goodyear factory, I mean,
Yeah.
that legacy alone is gold. A guy needed some money, and a couple of guys had a couple of bucks, and they loaned it to him, and then they figured, oh, and then all of a sudden you got a credit. The other thing that I just love and I'm very passionate about is spend locally. Whether
Yeah.
it's farm to table, but spend in your community. 70%
Yeah.
of the dollars stay. And it drops to, like, what do you say, 40%, drops to 30% when you're with a big bank. Now, you know, he's a credit union. He's going to make the case. That's a pretty good case right there. That one right there was really resonated with me.
Yeah, it's funny. We just moved to a little town, and there's 2 grocery stores here, though, versus the one that I used to have in my own little town. The 2 grocery stores is amazing because if one doesn't have something, the other one has it. It's uncanny. It's amazing. And yeah, is it easy to order online? Yeah, it really is. But as you say, we go look first at the stores, the little hardware store, the 2 grocery stores.
Yeah.
And that's what you do. Because I love what he said, 70% if we spend local, stays local. Otherwise, maybe 40% or less if we're ordering things too. So really powerful. And I think that also extends into their culture because I loved what he said about we go out into the community. We're in high schools, we're in colleges. You can't sit in your office and spread your culture or be local if you're behind closed doors.
Yeah, and this idea of every month we adopt
Yeah.
a small business or a nonprofit, they're
Love
everywhere. Yeah, big banks, that's just not that's not part of their mission.
Yeah.
My other note here was you got to take care of your people, and you got to be careful about that because sometimes what's good for a member might not be good for the membership. I thought that was really interesting. You see, we got lots of members and lots
Yeah.
of needs, and we want to fulfill all those needs. We still need to focus that say, okay, that might be really good for this one member, but maybe the membership. Keep it,
Yeah.
bigger picture and focused. I thought was really insightful.
I love that. Yeah, the customer's not always right. Here it is, Herb Keller at Southwest Airlines sending, you remember you told that story. The angry customer sends a letter and he sends a letter back saying, we're going to miss you.
Yeah, I
Because he
love
had his people's back. Yeah, and it was like, look, this is a hard job and we're going to have your back. May be good for the person, may not be good for all of our customer base.
And when organizations do that, you've listened to the podcast a couple of times. Adrian and I are big hockey fans and a New Jersey Devils fan. And I was talking to their marketing director. And they came out with a new jersey. And it's actually the jersey. And when it first came out, and it really grew on me. She was telling me that they had a season ticket holder that sent her the nastiest email.
Oh, wow.
And she said, look, I get stuff like this all the time. But she showed it to the president.
Yeah.
And he looked at that and he said, nope, that's not right. And they revoked his season tickets.
Wow.
I went, what?
Wow.
She's going to go the extra mile for him. Better believe it.
That's awesome.
When sports season ticket holders, that's your
Oh,
problem.
yeah, that's your bread and butter. And yeah, may lose a couple others, but it doesn't matter if it's wrong. And we don't need that kind of vitriol. Yeah, and we need to be a kinder, a gentler world, not an angry one.
One last thing that's interesting for those of you who are listening, say, well, he's had 44 employees. He knows everybody.
Yeah.
I think, how hard could it be? I think it's harder. I really do, because you don't have that redundancy. You can't make big mistakes with your people and hiring. So I really appreciate him coming through and saying, it's our people. We're really careful. We get referrals and so on. So when you listen to this and you say 44, it doesn't apply to me, take those principles that Nate talked about, because they really have not much margin of error. You make 4 or 5 bad hires. That's 10% of your workforce. You can't do it. So a lot of good nuggets in there. Don't worry about the size. Think about the principle and see what you can take back to your organization.
No, I love that because you're right. If I go into a credit union and I have a bad experience, a grumpy teller, or I'm looking for a mortgage and the person's disengaged, checking their phone and not, then I think you got a lousy culture. Like you say, it could just be 2 of the 44, but that's my experience. And I'm going to take that with me. Really powerful insights today from Nate. Thank him for joining us, taking a little time. But thank you to everybody who's tuned in today to learn a little bit more about culture and diving down into the world of people and marketing today.
Like we say, when the culture works, everything else works a little better. Cheers.